Welcome to my first video about Louis XVII. He was born on March 27, 1785. Louis XVII became King of France after the execution of his father, Louis XVI, on January 21, 1793, until his death on June 8, 1795, although Louis XVII never actually ruled. Louis Charles of France was born as the Duke of Normandy at the Palais de Versailles, son of King Louis XVI and the infamous Queen Marie-Antoinette. He was their third child and second son. Evil tongues claim that Louis Charles is the son of Axel von Fersen, who was romantically linked to Marie-Antoinette. Louis Charles was born exactly 9 months after von Fersen returned to the French court. Historians have, however, debunked this theory, as the conception of Louis Charles corresponds perfectly with the time when Louis XVI and Marie-Antoinette spent a lot of time together. On June 4, 1789, approximately 1 month before the start of the French Revolution, Louis Charles' older brother, the Dauphin, or heir apparent of France, died. Immediately, Louis Charles became the new Dauphin of France. On October 6, 1789, the royal family moved to the Palais Tuileries in Paris after an angry mob stormed Versailles and forced them to move there. They spent the next 3 years of their lives under the surveillance of National Guards. The family was isolated from others, and Marie-Antoinette spent a lot of time with her children. On June 21, 1791, the family tried to escape during the flight to Varennes, but they were caught and returned to Paris. Then the Palais des Tuileries was stormed by an armed mob on August 10, 1791, after which the royal family was moved to the Tower of the Temple. During their time in the Temple, the royal family was left in relative peace, but on December 11, 1792, at the start of his trial, King Louis XVI was taken away from his family. The king was beheaded by the guillotine on January 21, 1793, making Louis Charles the new king of France. After the execution of Louis XVI, several foreign aristocrats worked on plans to help escape the remaining members of the royal family. Unfortunately, none of these plans were actually carried out. On July 3, 1793, Louis Charles was removed from his mother. Antoine Simon, a cobbler, was named guardian to the young king. He was requested to change the young child from a king into a republican citizen. Many stories exist about this period in time, claiming that Antoine Simon and his wife severely mistreated the young king. This has, however, not been proven. On October 6, 1793, the boy king was visited by several individuals in order to secure his signature underneath an accusation of sexual molestation by his mother and his aunt. His mother was afterwards put on trial and beheaded by the guillotine on October 16, 1793. On January 19, 1793, the Simons were discharged from caring for the young king. They left him in good health. From this point on, the records of what happened to Louis Charles are missing, as they vanished under the Bourbon Restoration. It is said, however, that 2 days after the departure of Simon and his wife, Louis Charles was locked in a dark dungeon. His foot was passed through the bars of his cell, which never opened. Despite his dire surroundings, the boy survived. The story then goes that no one visited Louis Charles for a period of 6 months, until he was visited on July 27, 1794. Accounts of the visit describe the boy suffering from severe neglect. The documents, however, make no mention of Louis Charles being confined in the said dark dungeon. Nonetheless, it is clear that Louis Charles was completely isolated from others during the first half year of 1794. There were no guardians to take care of him. Louis Charles never complained about his circumstances or any ill treatment though. He was given a bath and clean clothes, his surroundings were cleaned, and during the day he was appointed a new guardian, Jean-Jacques Christophe Laurent, and his assistant, Gomin. The child was allowed outside for fresh air and walks on the roof of the temple. At this point in time, Louis Charles refused to speak any longer. On December 19, 1794, Louis Charles was visited by official delegates, but he refused to speak to them. On the 31st of March 1795, a new guardian was appointed to Louis Charles. In May of that same year, he became severely ill. It took several days before two doctors, Pelletan and Dumangin, were called in to see the boy, but it was too late. Louis Charles died on June 8, 1795. He was 10 years old. Pelletan conducted an autopsy on the child. Louis XVII died of tuberculous cervical lymphadenitis, lymph node swelling in the neck, an illness associated with tuberculosis. Dr. Pelletan was appalled to see the multitude of scars on the body of the young boy, which indicated that the boy had been severely mistreated during his captivity. In secret, Dr. Pelletan removed the heart of the young king, storing it in distilled wine in order to preserve it. On June 10, 1795, Louis XVII was buried at the Cimetière Sainte-Marguerite. No ceremony or mass was conducted. Despite several claims that the burial took place in secret, this is not the case. The burial of Louis XVII took place in broad daylight. A great many people gathered at the gates of the Temple Palace when the body of the young king was removed. The king was interred at the corner on the left of the cemetery. The grave was filled up, no headstone was placed. After the restoration of the Bourbon dynasty in 1815, Dr. Pelletan offered the heart to King Louis XVIII, the uncle of Louis Charles. Louis XVIII refused to accept the heart, not believing it was actually the heart of his nephew. After this, the heart was donated to Archbishop de Quélen of Paris. During the 1830 revolution, the Archbishop's palace was plundered, and the mummified heart was found by Pelletan's son among the ruins of the building. Pelletan's son had the relic placed in the crystal urn that you see in the photograph. After a few detours, the heart ended up in the possession of French historian Paul Cotin, who offered the heart to Don Carlos de Bourbon, a pretender to the throne of Spain. From here on out, the heart was passed on between aristocrats until it ended up in the possession of the Duc de Beaufremont, president of the Basilica of Saint-Denis in Paris. He placed the crystal urn containing the heart in the basilica's tomb where all kings of France are put to rest. The heart stayed in the tomb until December 1999, when it was removed for DNA testing. Mitochondrial DNA tests were conducted using strands of hair from, among others, Marie-Antoinette, her sisters, their mother, Empress Maria Theresa, and two living descendants in the strict maternal line from Maria Theresa. The tests proved that the heart was this of Louis Charles. After the conclusion was drawn that the heart was indeed this of King Louis XVII, an official burial was organized for the heart of Louis XVII on June 8, 2004 in the Basilica Saint-Denis. Louis XVII's heart was placed in a niche beside the resting place of his parents, Louis XVI and Marie-Antoinette. I hope you enjoyed this very first video on the life and tragic death of Louis XVII. More content will follow on the Bourbon dynasty. So if you enjoyed this video, leave me a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe.